There is something timeless about a great historical movie. When it is done right, it's not just about the costumes, the battles, or the politics. It's about the human stories set against the backdrop of real events that shape the world. The best historical films don't just show us the past, they make us feel it. But that's not easy to pull off. Too many historical movies fall into one of two traps. They either twist the facts beyond recognition for modern day social trends, or they stick so rigidly to the history that they forget to actually tell a story. The truly great films strike a balance. They respect history while still being cinematic, emotional, and unforgettable. This list is about my personal favourite historical films that I regularly go back to watch and appreciate for what they are. And before anyone rushes to the comments, no, they aren't racked purely on historical accuracy. Certainly, creative liberties will have been taken, but sometimes that is needed to make something memorable. So with that in mind, let's count down my top 10 historical movies. Starting with number 10, I have the 1970 film Cromwell. Now, this movie isn't perfect, far from it. In fact, it's one of those films where historical purists tend to wince at how it moves events and makes Cromwell more prominent in certain events than he actually was. But what cannot be disputed is the sheer power of the performances. And despite its flaws, this epic earns its place on my list because it captures something incredibly rare, the feeling of a nation on the brink of transformation. The film plunges us into the chaos of the English Civil War, a struggle not just between king and parliament, but between two visions of what England should be. Richard Harris delivers one of his most commanding performances as Oliver Cromwell, a man of faith, conscience, and ruthless determination. Opposite him is Sir Alec Guinness as King Charles I, who is equally brilliant, giving us a monarch who's both dignified and somewhat delusional. A man undone by his own sense of divine right. And what makes Cromwell stand out isn't its accuracy as mentioned, but its conviction. The dialogue crackles with ideological fury. The battles, while limited by the era's filmmaking techniques, still carry great weight and scale. And it's worth remembering in 1970 that a lot of audiences weren't used to historical epics that focused more on debate than spectacle. Cromwell dared to ask bigger questions about leadership, morality, and the cost of principles. Yes, it simplifies events and drifts into hero worship, but the spirit of the story remains intact. It's about conviction over comfort, ideals over obedience, and the messy, often violent birth of modern democracy. A favourite scene of mine is when Cromwell dissolves Parliament.
You are no more capable of conducting the affairs of this nation than you are of running a brothel. You are scum, sir. And a truly elected scum at that. This is no parliament. I shall put an end to your sitting. I hereby declare this parliament dissolved.
I think that may be something most of us Brits wish we could do, especially with our modern day politicians, who seem to value not the people, but themselves. So while it may not be the most polished entry on this list, Cromwell deserves recognition for trying something bold, serious, and distinctly British. A film of its time, and about a time that changed everything. At number 9, for me, I have 2017's The Darkest Hour. Now, if Cromwell was about tearing down a monarchy, Darkest Hour is about saving one. And with it, the free world. Joe Wright's Darkest Hour captures a moment in history when everything hung in the balance. 1940, Hitler's armies were sweeping through Europe, France was collapsing, and Britain, at the time, stood alone. And in the middle of that storm, one man, cigar in hand, trying to hold the line. And Gary Oldman doesn't just play Winston Churchill, he embodies him. Every hesitation, every flash of brilliance, every muttered insult, it's as if Churchill himself was reincarnated. It is no wonder that Gary Oldman won an Oscar for his performance, as it is nothing short of transformative. But what makes Darkest Hour so powerful isn't just the performances, it's the focus. The film doesn't try to show the whole war, instead it zooms in on a few critical weeks, when Churchill faced the unthinkable: should Britain negotiate peace with Hitler? Or fight on, against impossible odds? That narrow scope turns what could have been a standard biopic into something more. Behind closed doors, the pressure is suffocating. Ministers argue, allies waver, even the king doubts him. Yet Churchill endures. He's imperfect, stubborn, often insufferable, but utterly unbreakable. That's what made him the legend he was. And visually, the story gives a sense of grandeur that matches its stakes, mixing locations from Downing Street, underground bunkers and the House of Commons, capturing the heartbeat of a nation at war. Of course, there's one of my favourite scenes, which is in the underground, Churchill riding the tube, speaking with ordinary Londoners. It is of course fictional, but beautifully symbolic. Whether it happened or not really doesn't matter, because it feels true. And it captures the essence of leadership, listening to the people you're asking to fight and die for freedom. And what makes Darkest Hour worthy of a spot on this list isn't just that it glorifies Churchill, but that it humanises him. It shows us the fear, the doubt, the loneliness that comes with standing firm when everyone is against you. Yet through his actions, he wins supporters, and turns the tide of opinion. It's history distilled to its purest form: one man, one decision, and the courage to say,
"We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall never surrender!"
At number 8, I have 1993's Gettysburg. Running over 4 hours, Gettysburg isn't just a film, it's a full-blown immersion into one of the most defining battles of the American Civil War. This is historical filmmaking at its purest. No composite characters, no romantic subplots, no Hollywood gloss. Just men, ideals, and the terrible cost of conviction. The movie set out to recreate the Battle of Gettysburg with astounding authenticity. Thousands of Civil War reenactors volunteered to fight, march, and die again, all in their uniforms under the blazing Pennsylvania sun, simply to make the film feel real. And it does. Every line of formation, every volley, every drumbeat feels like it's echoing straight out of history. But it's also the humanity in Gettysburg, not just its scale, which make it great. The cast is stacked with actors who perform so believably, you feel as if they are them. Whether it's Jeff Daniels with his performance as Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, the quiet professor turned soldier who held the line at Little Round Top, Tom Berenger as Confederate General James Longstreet, who brings that wary wisdom, to Martin Sheen, who plays Robert E. Lee masterfully. And those are just a few. Whether they're a main or side character, they are performed with authenticity. The climactic Pickett's Charge sequence remains one of the best recreations of a battle. A slow, tragic march into certain death. No quick cuts, no hero music, just the thunder of cannon fire and the collapse of a dream. And what I do love about this movie is that it avoids all of those kind of war movie cliches. The movie is, pure and simple, about the Battle of Gettysburg in the summer of 1863. It's about the strategies, calculations, mistakes and heroism that turn the tide of the war. Now, it might not be for everyone, it's long, patient and completely unbothered by modern pacing, but that's what gives it its weight. It respects the audience intelligence, more importantly, it does respect history. A monument in motion picture form, as solemn, haunting and enduring as the battlefield itself. Moving to number 7, I have Ridley Scott's Gladiator. Now before Ridley Scott lost his magic and released slop like Napoleon and Gladiator 2, we had the original Gladiator. And at its heart lies Maximus Decimus Meridius, one of cinema's most enduring heroes. Played by Russell Crowe in a performance that made him a global star. Maximus is not a legend or a demigod, he's a soldier, a man loyal to his emperor, devoted to his family, and utterly betrayed by the system he served. And when his world collapses, he becomes something far more powerful. And Crow's performance works because it's somewhat restrained. He doesn't deliver long boring monologues, his strength is in his silent glares. You feel his grief, his rage, his resolve in every look. And opposite him, with Joaquin Phoenix, gives one of the most compelling villain performances of modern cinema. His Commodus isn't just evil for evil's sake, he's insecure, desperate for love, and terrified of irrelevance. His relationship with Maximus, both admiring and loathing, gives the story its tragic heart. The dynamic between them is Shakespearean. A usurper haunted by his father's approval, and a fallen hero haunted by loss. It's a story as old as an empire itself. The battle scenes from the Germanic forest to the Colosseum floor are staged with such authenticity and intensity, and Hans Zimmer's score ties it all together. It's thunderous when it needs to be, but it's the quiet moments that linger that really mould it all together. And that's what makes Gladiator special. Beneath the spectacle lies sincerity. It is all about a man who could have accepted the corruption of Rome and chosen comfort, but didn't. He fights for integrity. His victory isn't measured in survival, but in legacy. Of course, Gladiator plays fast and loose with history, as is common with most Ridley Scott movies. Commodus didn't die in the arena, and Rome wasn't rebuilt by one man's honour. But Ridley Scott found the balance of creating a story within an environment that felt real and authentic. Now he kind of lost the plot with Gladiator 2, which left a big turd on history, but at least we have this movie, and that combination of heart, heroism and spectacle makes Gladiator not just one of the best historical movies, but one of the most influential. Next at number 6, I have 1998's Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg, now he didn't just make a war movie, he made a visual experience. The opening scene at Omaha Beach is still unmatched. It is 20 minutes of utter chaos, fear, and sheer survival that takes you back to one of the most important moments in World War II. It's not stylized or heroic, it's disorientating, loud, and horrifyingly real. You can barely tell what's happening, and that's exactly the point. That realism wasn't just achieved through effects, it came through discipline. Spielberg used real veterans as consultants, making sure even the smallest details, like the uniforms and the tactics, the exhaustion, were all authentic. The filming involved a rigorous 10-day boot camp for most of the main cast, which was intentionally skipped for Matt Damon to recreate resentment from the other actors towards his character, Private Ryan. But what makes the film great isn't only its realism, it's the human struggle of identity. Take Captain Miller's moment after the group take a German outpost. His squad argue over whether to kill that single German soldier. He quietly admits that he's a schoolteacher, and after everything we've seen, this single line redefines him. He's not a soldier by nature, just an ordinary man doing his duty for his country, and that humility runs through the entire movie. And he certainly delivers one of his greatest performances. Calm, weary, and deeply human, he's not a movie hero, he's the kind of leader everyone hopes to have. And the rest of the cast play their roles perfectly with him. Technically, it is masterful. The cinematography gives it that real distinct, desaturated look that influenced countless war films after it. And John Williams' score is restrained, more mournful than heroic, and Spielberg's use of natural light and handheld framing changed how realism was shot on screen. And for me, it's on this list because it redefined the war film from something grand and patriotic into something intimate and human. It showed the true horror of history. And it all just works, because every frame respects the men it portrays. This isn't just about war, it's about empathy, sacrifice, and the unbearable weight of doing what's right. At number 5, I have 1964's Zulu. Zulu earns its place on this list because it proves that you don't need CGI or hundreds of edits to create tension, just great storytelling, character, and respect for history. Released in 1964, it tells the true story of the Battle of Rorke's Drift, where a small garrison of British soldiers, roughly 150 men, held off an assault by over 4,000 Zulu warriors. It's a classic underdog story, but what makes it brilliant is how it tells it. Right from the start, Zulu feels grounded. The opening isn't an explosion of violence, it's eerily calm. You see the aftermath of the massacre of Iceland, the calm before the storm. It's the deliberate pacing that builds suspense. You kinda know what's coming, and the film makes you really wait for it. And the dynamic between the two leads is one of the film's greatest strength. Stanley Baker plays Lieutenant Chard, the professional engineer who becomes a reluctant commander, while a young Michael Caine in his breakout role plays Lieutenant Bromhead, the upper-class officer who is inexperienced and somewhat arrogant. Watching them clash and gradually come to respect one another gives the film a powerful human core. The film's tension doesn't come from quick cuts or constant action, it's built from precision. The Zulu warriors appear as distant silhouettes on the hills, singing and chanting. Their approach is rhythmic and ritualistic. The British soldiers form ranks, check rifles, and wait. The silence before each wave of attack is as nerve-wracking as the battle itself. And when the battle begins, Zulu becomes a masterclass in control. It uses the wide shots to show the scale, then tight framing to show the fear. You see soldiers reloading in real time, smoke filling the air, men fighting simply to survive. There is no glorification here, just endurance. And what really elevates the film is its tone of mutual respect. And for a film made in the 1960s, it's surprisingly fair in both portrayals of both sides. The Zulu warriors aren't faceless enemies, they're disciplined, brave, and honourable. Their chants and formations are filmed with awe, not fear, and the final salute, when both armies acknowledge each other's courage, remains an incredibly powerful ending. And definitely for me, despite its age, Zulu holds up because it captures something timeless, courage under impossible circumstances. And it's on my list because it achieves greatness through simplicity. Every element, the performances, the pacing, and the authenticity, works together to create one of the most tense, honourable depictions of warfare ever filmed. At number 4, I have Redcliffe, Part 1 and 2. The film earns its place on this list because it's everything a great historical epic should be: visually stunning, emotionally grounded, and deeply respectful of the history it portrays. Equally, it is also one of my favourite periods in history. Directed by John Woo, it tells the story of the legendary Battle of Redcliffe, a conflict from 208 AD that decided the fate of China for centuries to come. But what makes the film extraordinary isn't just its massive scale, it's the precision beneath the spectacle. Now, there are two ways to look at this film. You could look at it from the real historical battle, but it is enhanced from the mythology from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms novel. And where most war epics rely on chaos, Redcliffe finds beauty in strategy. This is a film where intellect is as thrilling as combat. You're not just watching armies collide, you're watching minds at work, the tacticians, philosophers, and generals treating war as a chess match played with human lives. Tony Leung's performance as Zhu Yu and Takeshi Kaneshiro as Zhu Liang are at the heart of it. Both men are calm, brilliant, and utterly composed, symbols of balance and reason, yet also deep mistrust, understanding that even though they are allies at this moment in time, they are a danger to their respective masters because of their intellect. However, their friendship becomes the emotional spine of the story. We also have Cao Cao, a character who is trying to bring the Warring States period to an end. He is one of my personal favourite historical figures, and Zhang Fengji plays him impressively. He is a powerful figure in history, so it needed to be done right. And I think it was. The film is full of masterful moments that show John Woo's control of both emotion and scale. A standout scene is Zhu Liang's borrowing arrows stratagem, using boats lined with straw men to trick the enemy into supplying his army with arrows. It's clever, cinematic, and perfectly captures the cunning intelligence that defines the Three Kingdoms era. Another unforgettable sequence is the naval battle itself. Thousands of ships, sails blazing, wind whipping through the smoke, all choreographed with beauty. Yet despite its grandeur, Redcliffe never loses sight of what's most important, that between the battles, there are quiet moments that show a real heart with each character. What makes it special is how it translates the Three Kingdoms storytelling for a global audience without losing its authenticity. It is a film steeped in philosophy, the balance between yin and yang, intellect and courage, yet it resonates universally. and this film deserves its place on my list because it's the perfect fusion of artistry and authenticity. It focuses on intellect and balance, showing that the greatest weapons in history has and always will be the mind. Now at number 3 I have 2003's The Last Samurai. It's a story about the collision between two worlds, the modern and the traditional, the industrial and the spiritual. And unlike so many historical epics that simply glorify warfare, this one finds beauty in reflection, in honour, culture, and the quiet dignity of loss. Tom Cruise's character, Nathan Algren, begins the film broken. He's a soldier haunted by what he's done, a man without a cause, drowning in guilt and whiskey. But when he's captured by the very people he's hired to destroy, the samurai, the film transforms into something far deeper than a typical redemption story. The reason The Last Samurai works is because it treats that transformation with sincerity. Algren doesn't become Japanese, he learns to understand them. Through the lens of his personal rebirth, we witness the final breath of the samurai era, a culture of discipline, grace and spirituality, giving way to the machinery of modern Japan. Ken Watanabe's Katsumoto is the film's beating heart. His performance radiates wisdom and melancholy, a man fully aware that his way of life is dying, but determined to face the end with honour. His calm strength gives the film its emotional anchor. The scenes between him and Algren, quiet conversations about death, loyalty and duty, are among the film's most powerful moments. And visually, The Last Samurai is stunning. Misty mountains, the snow-covered fields, and the iconic cherry blossoms symbolising impermanence. And that beauty contrasts sharply with the industrialisation closing in, with the trains, the rifles, and the uniforms replacing swords and ceremony. Every shot tells the story of a world changing too fast. The film's pacing also deserves praise. Rather than rushing from battle to battle, it takes time to breathe. The training sequences, learning the language, understanding Bushido, mastering the sword, it all feels intimate and respectful. And when the final battle does arrive, it's not about victory, it's about inevitability. The samurai charge knowing they can't win, but they do it anyway, because some principles are worth dying for. And that moment, the slow motion charge into gunfire, the sound of arrows giving way to bullets, is a haunting depiction of honour, meeting modernity. And what makes The Last Samurai worthy of this spot is that its balance of grandeur and sincerity. It's not just about war or history, it's about identity and redemption. It shows respect, not only for the samurai, but for the idea that tradition and progress can coexist, even when history can say otherwise. At number 2 now with 2003's Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. This film earns its place at number 2 because it's one of the most authentic and intelligent historical films ever made. Set during the Napoleonic Wars, Peter Weir's masterpiece follows Captain Jack Aubrey and the crew of the HMS Surprise. They pursue a French privateer ship across the Atlantic and into the Pacific. It sounds simple, but what makes the film extraordinary is how real it feels. There's no Hollywood gloss here. Every detail, every rope, every stitch, every sound feels real. This is a film where accuracy and artistry work hand in hand. The ship isn't a set, it's a world, cramped, loud and alive. It's that immersion that makes Master and Commander so special. It doesn't just show you the past, it really does transport you there. And Russell Crowe gives an incredibly grounded performance as Captain Jack Aubrey. He's a man of command, confident, charming and fallible. His leadership feels earned from his actions, steadfast under pressure, decisive in a crisis, yet capable of compassion. Complementing him is Paul Bettany's Dr. Stephen Maturin, who provides the film's conscience. As a surgeon and naturalist, he represents reason and science, a man fascinated by the world beyond war. The friendship between Aubrey and Maturin is the soul of the film. Their debates about duty versus curiosity, command versus conscience, elevates the story beyond a simple chase. And that balance between the battles and the high moments is what makes Master and Commander remarkable. And when the action does come, it's breathtaking in its precision. The naval battles are some of the best ever filmed, tense, claustrophobic, and tactically intricate. The opening ambush in the fog, where the Surprise is attacked out of nowhere, is a perfect example of this. And then we have the storm sequence, which captures the raw, merciless beauty of the sea. Though what truly sets this film apart is its tone. It doesn't need melodrama or speeches to make its point. It trusts that we as an audience can absorb the details, the hierarchy, the daily grind, the rituals of life at sea. That trust makes it feel authentic. It's history told with intelligence and respect. And then there's the music. Both the violin duets and the classical score, it gives the story a rhythm, a sense of poise amid chaos. And as a film it works, because it's confident enough to be quiet. It doesn't shout about its heroism. It shows it through endurance, discipline and decency. It's rare to find a historical film that finds grandeur not in conquest, but in craftsmanship. And it deserves its place this high, because it stands as proof that accuracy, subtlety and character can be just as thrilling as spectacle. It is authentic to a T, and one of my very favourite movies ever made. At number 1, standing tall above every other historical movie, is 1970's Waterloo. Now this isn't just a movie, it is the gold standard for historical epics. A film so ambitious, so meticulous, and so overwhelming in scale that even half a century later, no one has come close to replicating it. Directed by Sergei Bondarchuk, the same visionary who brought War and Peace to life, Waterloo recreates Napoleon's final defeat with a realism and scope that border on the impossible. It's the kind of film that could have only been made before computers took over. There is no CGI, no digital armies, just thousands of real soldiers, horses and cannons moving in perfect harmony across miles of open field. And the result is staggering. Over 17,000 extras, real Soviet troops mind, were trained for months to march, fight and die in unison. The production turned miles of Ukrainian farmland into an exact replica of the battlefield. When you see the squares of infantry hold against the cavalry, it's actually happening. You're watching history recreated, not simulated. And that's what makes Waterloo number 1. It feels like history itself. You don't just observe the battle, you witness it, in all of its madness and majesty. And Rod Steiger delivers a fantastic portrayal of Napoleon. His performance is thunderous yet deeply human, showing both the Emperor's brilliance and his unravelling arrogance. Every glance, every gesture is deliberate. You can see the weight of destiny pressing down on him. A man who's conquered so much, but now haunted by the knowledge that he's about to lose it all. And opposite him is Christopher Plummer's Duke of Wellington, and he is the perfect counterpoint. Cool, analytical, and unflappable. Where Napoleon burns with ego, Wellington wins with calculation. Their duel isn't just military, it's psychological. Two geniuses testing each other's nerve on the grandest stage imaginable. And Bondarchuk directs the film like a general commanding an army. His camera doesn't just follow the action, it orchestrates it. Sweeping aerial shots reveal entire regiments moving like clockwork. The smoke, the thunder and the chaos. It's all choreographed with painterly precision. And the famous cavalry charges, filmed from ground level, feel like tidal waves of steel and muscle. And you can feel the ground shake, and the air split open by the cannon fire. But beneath all that spectacle, Waterloo has heart and tragedy. The quiet moments are just as powerful as the battles. Napoleon's hesitation at dawn, his silent despair as his men die for him. But that tone is what makes Waterloo so unique. It doesn't glorify war or heroism, it shows them as fleeting things, consumed by history's unstoppable tide. The final scenes with Napoleon riding away through the rain as dead cover the field are haunting. You're left with a sense of awe and sadness, the same feeling that history itself leaves behind. And visually it's still unmatched. The colour, the framing, the sheer composition of the battle scenes, every shot could be a painting. Even the score elevates everything, blending triumph and tragedy, power and melancholy. It gives the film an operatic weight befitting the fall of an emperor. And historically, it's astonishingly detailed. Bondarchuk and his team studied maps, memoirs and military manuals to ensure it was as authentic as it could be. It is a level of dedication that modern filmmakers rarely attempt. But perhaps the greatest achievement of Waterloo is its balance. It's not a film that takes sides. It's not French or British. It's human. It understands that history's greatest moments are built on courage, folly, brilliance and vanity, all existing side by side. Waterloo stands as a monument, not just to Napoleon's downfall, but to what cinema can achieve when it treats history as both art and truth. It's the ultimate combination of vision, scale, and authenticity. And that's why it's my number one, because no other film, before or since, has captured the scope of history, the tragedy of ambition, and the beauty of chaos, quite like Waterloo. It's not just the best historical film ever made, it is the definition of what a historical epic should be. And that's my list. 10 films that define what historical cinema can be when done right. They don't just dramatise the past, they honour it through story, emotion and craft. And if you enjoyed this list, make sure to like, share and subscribe to help the channel grow, and let me know in the comments your top historical films. Thanks again for your continued support, and I'll see you next time.